throughout, when I look back at my career, what I've found I've had the advantage of doing is really a combination and balance of some sales and marketing positions and some operations positions,
Mm-hmm.
as well as some corporate positions and some kind of out in the field closer to the customer positions.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look back, it's really the variety of that I find I got the most out of. I think I contributed the most as well. I enjoy, laying out strategy, creating processes, and trying to move the business forward. But I don't like doing that in a vacuum. So being out with the customers and with our employees and seeing how things work, getting some feedback, making some adjustments, I think that's really been the apex of what I've been able to do in my career.
Okay, okay. If you have to extract one thing and just do that for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Probably wouldn't be working. No,
Okay, okay.
no. If I could do one thing, that's a good question. I think getting feedback from customers, um, you know, hearing what they have to say. I mean, when you're laying out a business and you put your best plans together and you think how things are going to work, but until the customer experiences what you're actually doing, getting that feedback from them is extraordinary. So I think if I could do anything just one time, it would be really talking to customers and then using that feedback to make adjustments in how you're running your business.
Right, right. Myself, I also face the two challenges. Not the challenges, but I wish I would have a genie and I would just know that the thing that I would make and customers would just, you know, pay anything, do anything to get it.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's the difficult part. So they should be so, I don't have the words, so desperate to get that service or product or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
you look at the Apple iPhone,
hmm,
the
hmm,
thought of having customers lining up at your door hours in
yeah,
advance to buy this brand new product that you've invented,
true,
that's the dream. But,
true.
you look across, the history of the world, that's very rarely does that happen.
Hmm, yeah,
So, but
yeah.
I think you're right. That's the dream.
And the second part is making that thing. So without these two, one of the two, you cannot proceed. You have to have both of them. And then later on, other things, come into play, like the cost and the marketing and the other things. You can, um, multiply the effect of the product by marketing, by branding, and the other things. Okay. So customer experience. How do you know? How do you communicate with the customer? And what ways or tactics prove to be more successful or beneficial for you to know the insights? Because I'll give an example. Sometimes customers don't know what they're looking at. Like Henry Ford, people said, I think it was Henry Ford, if I'm not mistaken, that they want a faster horse, but he invented a car.
Right.
So if he had been listening to the customers, he would be working on the health of the horses and shoes of the horses or whatever that's called. So how do you listen to customers? What are the tactics?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think the key word there is listening to the customers, rather than talking to the customers.
Mm-hmm.
The customer will always guide you if your ears are open and you're listening to what they're saying. And sometimes, like Henry Ford, maybe what they're not saying. But normally, what I have found is
Can you
that
can you pause it? There's a distortion. Let me fix that and get back.
right,
Right.
okay,
Just
I can
10
start again.
seconds. Yeah, 10 seconds.
Sure.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think you hit on something. I think the key word there is listening to your customer.
Mm-hmm.
If your ears are open and your head is open and your heart is open, you'll hear what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they don't put it in the words you would use, or, they see something that you don't see. But much like, Henry Ford's example, right? He knew what his vision was. He heard a statement and he connected the two of them together. Most of the times what I found in my career is that you start down a path and you have to realize that that path is not going to be a straight line. It's going to weave through some successes and some failures, and you'll eventually get to the right place. Um, but in my career, I found that it's listening to that customer when they say something or use your product a different way than you intended it to use, and that's kind of when you have your light bulb moment, and you go, voila, that's it, and then you kind of move down that path. I've had that happen a couple times
Hmm.
in my career, and then it seems very obvious to you, what the solution was, but you didn't see it in your planning stages, and again, it's only the watching the customer use your product, listening to what they have to say, that does that light bulb go off.
Okay, okay. And how do you find the things that customers do not tell you, that they even don't know, but you have to go ahead of them and find out?
Yeah, a lot of that is, and what I found in my history is talking to our own employees who are dealing with the customer every day. I may be out, visiting a store or what have you, every once in a while, and I get some great insight and some great feedback from talking to customers that way. But I'm certainly not dealing with the customer every single day, in every single instance. So really talking to your employees, asking them the questions of, how do people like this? What don't they like? Making sure you're building up a level of trust with your own people that afraid to tell you things. They're not there just telling you what you want to hear. And I think that takes some time and some relationship building with your own people. And I think that's as critical as, doing the same with your own customers.
Hmm, I see. And how do you find a product that is missing in the market?
That's an interesting question. A lot of the times, that's sometimes found by accident,
Mm-hmm.
or it's found by your own expertise in one field and then applying it to a different field. And I'll share the story of when I was in the hotel business, and very early on in my business, heard the story of, Jack DeBoer, who started extended stay hotels, where I spent a really long amount of my time in my career with, and he was an apartment developer.
Mm-hmm.
And, he had people coming to him to stay for a month at a time or 2 months at a time, even though the apartments were leased for a year at a time. So he built this new product to take care of those people that he thought would be for a month at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And, when he followed up with his own employees, he found out that the customer now wanted it for a week at a time or a few days at a time. So, a lot of it wasn't his original intention, but again, back to listening to how the customer interacted, listening to his own employees, building that level of trust where, they could tell him something that was different than what he thought,
Mm-hmm.
and he built it into a multi-billion dollar, industry.
Right, right. And not only that, I mean, a lot of other factors come into play as well, like actually running and creating the business. You get the idea, but have
Right.
to transform that, and it involves a lot of things. It involves hiring, it involves conveying your solution to the audience, which is marketing and advertising, and then sales, and then pricing, and all that stuff.
Yep.
The things I just told you, which is there a one thing that matters the most? Of course, everything matters. You if exclude one thing, you
Yeah.
cannot run the business. But
Right. I mean, it's, and what I found, it's a lot of things are competing priorities that matter the most. I mean, my first reaction to your question is just being well capitalized and having the money to be able to, build out your product, survive your mistakes, whatever the case may be.
mm-hmm.
But if that's done in a vacuum, you're just going to spend a lot of money, so
Yeah.
it's also all the other things that you talked about, and then being capitalized enough to take a different path and make and be able to survive those mistakes. So, everybody has a great idea. Having a great idea isn't the hard part, right?
Mm.
It's being able to fund those ideas and see them through fruition and go through all the different aspects that you need to make it successful.
Mm.
There's more companies that failed in this world than those that succeeded. And not all the ones that failed were because they didn't have enough money, and not all the ones that failed were because they did have enough money. It has to have the whole piece of the puzzle, all the puzzle pieces together to get to success.
Right, right. So in short, you gotta have competent or lucky. You replace the words with each other, whatever it depends on
Yeah.
the person, competent or lucky in almost all the areas.
Yeah,
You cannot.
and your timing has to be right.
Right,
I mean,
right.
you just some things outside of your control. I mean, call it luck, whatever the case may
Hmm.
be. Sometimes you just have to be at the right place at the right time and see an opportunity as it knocks on your door and open it
Right.
up and walk through. And that comes down to something you didn't ask me about or talk about. It's the ability to take some risk. And there's
Right.
a lot of people who have a great idea, can see the void in the marketplace, but they're uncomfortable in taking that risk to see it to fruition. And that's not always financial risk. It
Hmm.
may be the risk of, I don't want to, work that hard. I don't want to take time away from
I lost your voice.
my own. None of those are wrong. I mean, you have to do things that you can sleep at night and look yourself in the mirror, but people are compensated for the risks they took, not
Hmm.
always for the amount of time or how hard they worked. So I find younger people sometimes don't realize that. They get frustrated when they see great wealth in this world. That wealth really came from people who are willing to take some risks that maybe they're not willing to take. And I think that's an important lesson, for everyone to learn.
Right, right. Any tactic you want to share for marketing that worked for you? Advertisement, marketing.
I think being open to different ways to market your product. Again, like everything else, you kind of walk down one path and then you make an adjustment and you wind up doing something, down the road. But I think the consistency, the one piece of advice I'd have is being consistent. Whether that's how you talk about your products, how you show your products, your graphics, your what have you. I mean, I think having a great discipline around the way you want your product conveyed in the marketplace goes a long way. I mean, if you constantly tinker and change and do too much on the marketing side, you just confuse the customer. So I think you have to have some consistency.
Hmm. Okay. Any books you want to recommend to people for business, entrepreneurship, marketing?
The best business book I've read and I found for myself, it's not only a business book that helped me, but it helped me in life, was the Seven Habits of Highly Successful People by Stephen
Hmm.
Covey.
Right.
I read that, probably in my 30s. I actually gave it to my son to read when he started off his career, and the fact that he got a lot out of it, a generation after I got a lot out of it, told me that that book resonates. So that's the one book that I would recommend. I'd also recommend on reading that you have a well-rounded appetite for reading, that it's
Hmm.
not always the business book. Read some autobiographies, read some novels. Don't be so myopic that everything is about business. you know I think reading is just a great exercise for your mind. So picking the times in your life, whether you're on a long flight, whether you're reading at night before you go to bed, what have you, that you have a wide variety of things that you read.
Hmm. Any other book you want to add to this book?
Good to Great was a great book.
Okay.
I've read a lot of business books, but a lot of them kind of sound a lot alike, and you get a little tidbit out of each of them. But those two books, I think, from start to finish, I got a lot out of.
Okay. What one or two books were I would not say a waste of time, but not the best investment, a return on time.
A lot of when you just said a lot of it's just how to manage your own time. I think a lot of books that come across as a little preachy, or here's a model that you should follow, or what have you. What I liked about the Seven Habits book is there were real life stories
Hmm.
outside of business. The whole Clean and Green. Those that have read the story about
Hmm.
coaching his son how to mow the lawn, that he just wanted to make sure that it's clean and green. I mean, some of those things are just very common sense ideas that resonate,
Right.
at least resonated for me.
Right.
So, I find books that get too myopic, I don't get a lot out of.
Right. Right. And of course, you would say that these books would make a tangible difference in life. They would change the course of life for the better.
Absolutely. I mean, again, and the key word is there is your life, right? Not
Mm.
only your business
Yeah,
life, but your personal life. And
true,
your personal life has all kinds of different segments, right?
true.
It's your family, it's your faith, it's yourself as an individual. I mean, we spend a lot of time alone. So, how to make that time productive is as important as making yourself productive around other people.
Right, right. Fantastic, fantastic. So keeping the first podcast short, um, my third last or second last question would be, if you had a billboard, it's about you and your personality and your vision, and you would, and everyone in the world would be able to see that billboard, and you're allowed to put anything on the billboard, words, pictures, but not about your business. What would you put on that billboard? A message that you want to convey to all the world.
I'd put the word balance,
I see.
that you somehow can figure out, it's not easy, but somehow can figure out a way in your life to have a wide variety of activity and people and
Mm,
experiences. You're not just known for one aspect and at the sacrifice of others. So it's
mm,
not easy. Sacrificing is probably a key part to achieve that. But that, the most successful people in life, in my opinion, are those that have a great family, have a great, working life. A business doesn't mean you have to own the business, but you are contributing, you get
mm.
something back out of it. You have some personal achievements that you've done along the way. Those may be mental, those may be physical, those may be in groups you're in or what have you. But my billboard would somehow convey the theme of balance.
Right. There's a book called The One Thing. Not sure you have heard of that.
I have not.
Okay, so that book says that you don't have to. I mean, I'm not in any way contradicting your what you said, but I'm just exchanging the thought. And I agree with you what you said for the most
Mhm.
part. That you don't have to be even okay in everything. You have to be great in one thing, and
Yes. Yep.
that one thing can rule. Your business or your life, or it can be a very. What do you think about that instead of balance? Of course, balance is needed, but what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's right. I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
again, the question becomes, where is that one thing in your life, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that one thing you're a fantastic parent,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you get the most value in your life? Is the one thing you're able to analyze data and put it into plans and actions? Is that the one thing? So, I think as you kind of separate your life into its different buckets, whatever that one thing is, probably carries across a lot of them, but we all have our strengths and weaknesses, right? And
Right.
playing to your strengths in all your buckets really makes you successful. And trying to shore up your weaknesses, either by leaning on a partner or leaning on other people, or trying to shore them up a little bit yourself. You're never going to make a weakness a strength, but maybe you can take one of your weaknesses and get kind of average at it, and that'll have an impact as well.
Right. I think the book also said that you don't have to, or that book, or I don't remember, but there's a saying that you don't even have to improve your weaknesses. I mean, of course, that you should, or sometimes, but the return would be far more to improve your strengths instead and be
Strengths,
so competent.
absolutely.
I'm not sure how this will go. Let me give you another example. Steve Jobs is famous not to have the balance. He didn't have the balance with his family. He was so
Right.
competent in Apple and doing what he did in Apple over there. He didn't have the normal life that everybody else has. But it's a long discussion. Uh, any last
And
note?
again, for
Yeah,
Steve Jobs, that probably was success, right? Because that's
true,
where he wanted to spend his time. And, there's nothing wrong with that. But for somebody else, they may look at his life and go, oh my God, he missed out on,
true.
you know,
Mm,
other relationships or part of his life. And that wouldn't have worked for that person. So,
true, true, true.
I think each of us has to create our own path and what
Right,
success looks like for us,
right,
and then
right.
stay true to it.
Absolutely, very well said. That for someone, Steve Jobs' life would be a misery for him.
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
some for some people it will be a dream. So it depends on the person, how much
Right.
balance he wants, how much the one thing he wants. There's not a right or wrong answer. I would say it depends on the person.
Right.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
No, I agree with that.
Um, I would say that you don't. I mean, it's just for me. You don't hugely disturb the balance, but you should be competent in one or two things, provided that you don't disturb the balance of life. I mean, you don't go off
Yes.
too much
Agree.
on one thing. You don't destroy your family, or you don't, But again, depends on the person. It
Right.
depends on the motives. Sometimes, for religious reasons, for political reasons, that one thing is far more important than family. Sometimes as well. You have to save a
Yeah, and
nation.
also at the time of your life,
Yeah, yeah.
where your priorities are in your 20s versus where your priorities are in your 40s versus
True,
where your priorities are in your 60s
true,
can be
true,
very different, and
true,
and that's okay.
true, true. Very well said. Okay. What my second last question? What um, advice would you give to your younger self, uh, or the people who are in their teenage and they want to pursue the similar career that you have lived already in your life? Is there any pieces of advice you have?
I think that the biggest piece of advice in what I've seen evolve in the time I've been alive in my career is really thinking of yourself as a brand as well. That your makeup, your
Mm,
decision
mm,
making, your communication
mm.
style, how you react into good times, how you react to bad times, it all kind of makes your own brand. And younger kids in high school may be concerned about their reputation, and a little bit of that is branding. But
Right.
even as you get older and you're around different people, I think just what you want your brand to be, how you want to be known, how you want to be seen. Um, if I could go back, I might make some different choices and decisions, thinking of myself as a brand that I didn't think of when I was younger.
Right, right. I missed that part for the uh, considerable part of my life. I didn't pay attention to self-branding, which is important.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Yeah.
My
And
last
again,
question.
some of this
Yeah.
is just comes with time and wisdom, right? I mean,
True, true.
you know, the teenager today, you ask that question 30
Yeah.
or 40 years from now, they're gonna look back and say, geez, I wish I had done that. It all comes with age and maturity.
True. And if someone had told them, they would not have acted anyway, because they would not
Right.
understand the value of that. True, I understood many things at a certain age, though they were in my knowledge or someone taught me those when I was a teenager, but I didn't got the value of that, and it's true for most people.
Yeah.
Okay,
A great quote is how stupid your parents got once you turned 15, and then how smart they got when you turned 25.
fantastic code,
You know?
fantastic
Yeah.
code. Yes, I understand. Okay, last question. Is there anything I missed that you want to share? Anything that I didn't covered in the brief podcast we had? You want to share or be
Nothing
asked?
about me personally, but I'd be curious if, as you've talked to a variety of different people by doing this, what have you learned, from having these interviews?
Oh, a lot of things. Like I was a super introvert, and it was not my choice. I didn't have the abilities even. I mean, to talk to anyone, male, female, anyone, in my childhood. And I got a techie person. I got into programming. That's again a dry subject. The programmers don't talk to people. They don't have a social life usually. It's observed. um, I was born in an Asian country, so communication socialism was not of that level there either. And then I changed that. I started traveling many countries. Now I don't sit in a single country. Then I started to talk to people. I have talked to hundreds of people by now, and every person, I would say, to answer your question, 60%, it's a rough number, or percentage. gave me almost the same thing. 50 to 60% people at least showed the same attitude, same things, and maybe that's, I mean, everybody, for example, because we're humans, we do the same things. Usually everybody has a TV. He comes back to home and have dinner and watches TV. That's the usual case with most people. So the mentality, the things, it was same for most people, but 10% of the people gave me a lot of different ideas, thoughts in many different disciplines of life. It's not a one single discipline I talk to people in, like business, entrepreneurship, marketing, health, and the list goes on and on. I don't have the confined list of subjects. I have a variety of subjects. So 10% gave me very in I mean, it's a time investment on my side. I have
Sure.
to spare time. Video editing, I have a team and they do a work. They search people and we select the people. Then we have to edit the video. Then we have to upload that. I have to be present in the podcast, but I think that that's a very less cost of my learnings from those people, those 10%. And so 60 plus 10, 70, remaining 30% or 20%, you can say those were competent people, those good people, okay people. They were learnings as well. Uh, the last part is, even if you show those 60% of the people to the audience, even that is a great value, because these podcasts are intended to be shared with people and they would search the topics of their interest. And once they do, there would be opportunities for them to listen to the person they like or the subject they like. And that's simply exchanging of ideas. The 60% for me might be normal, but for someone it would be a great value
Sure.
of information. Like you shared the two books, and yesterday I read reviews of the same books. I was planning
Oh,
to read
really?
them, yes, and I got a
Yeah.
testimonial from you,
Yeah.
and such a testimonial that you referred the book to your son. I was also thinking to refer the book Atomic Habits to my son. I have a son as well. So now we exchange some ideas, some real ideas. It's not the reviews on Amazon where you cannot talk to that person or ask a question. So this is a different thing. Thank you for the video and YouTube and modern technology. We are able to do this sitting in
Yeah.
a different world, country, and or a place or thousands of miles apart, and still like-minded people can exchange ideas. So
Yeah.
I gave a very long answer, but I was so excited about this. That's what I'm doing right now, and I'm enjoying and getting benefit. And most of all, people would be getting benefit. And maybe if they pray for us, we will get benefit again as a ripple effect. So yeah, that's. I hope I concluded the answer.
Yeah. Great. Well, I wish you all the
Um,
luck, and I very much appreciate you asking me to join you.
Fantastic. It was a very nice meeting to you. Very good discussions we had, and I look forward to have further sessions. Maybe we will have group sessions with other people who share the
Sure.
same feelings.
Okay. Be happy to
Thank you.
join you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Have a great day.
Bye bye.